I was falsely accused of SA by a family member and no one in the family believed me. Now the truth is out and they are reaching out to me. Hey, I've never posted on Reddit before, but I found this subreddit through a link on another forum and started reading some stories. If I'm in the wrong place, just let me know. Also, English isn't my first language, so please be patient with me. Basically, the title sums it up. I'm feeling really lost about what to do. This is reopening old wounds, and I can feel the anger bubbling up again. Let me share some background. I grew up in what you'd call a pretty typical household. My parents worked a lot but still made time for me and my 3 older sisters. We weren't super close, but we didn't have any major issues either. The same goes for my extended family. They lived a few hours away, but we'd get together during the summer, holidays, or Christmas, and everything was great. As we got older, though, we naturally drifted apart as everyone got busy with their own lives. Now I'm 31. Back in 2014, when I was 22 and in college, I got a call from my mom that flipped my world upside down. I remember I didn't pick up at first because I was gaming with friends, but she called again right after. In our family, there's this unspoken rule. If someone calls twice like that, it's serious. Like, someone might have died serious. So when she called again, I stepped away from my game and answered, only to hear chaos on the other end. It sounded like people were arguing. But when my mom realized I picked up, it seemed like she moved to another room and shut the door. I just asked what was happening, and I heard she was crying. My memory of that chat is a bit fuzzy, but she basically wanted to know if I had something to confess about my cousin from my mom's side, who is 7 years younger than me and was 15 at the time. I hadn't seen in years. I simply said no and asked what was going on. She cried even harder and started accusing me of sexually assaulting when we were kids. Apparently, had told my sister everything, and my sister passed it on to my mom and aunt. Claimed that when she was 9 and I was 16, she was playing in my room, and I came in and started touching her under her clothes and kissing her. My mom yelled at me to say something, but I was so stunned I couldn't even respond. It felt completely ridiculous. I remember thinking this had to be some kind of sick joke. The last thing I managed to say was that it wasn't true and that was lying. But then my mom kept saying how detailed story was about where and how it happened. She kept asking me things like, did you do this? Did you do that? And I just yelled back no every time. It all ended with my mom putting me on speaker and both my parents saying they wanted nothing to do with me and that I should never contact them again. Later that day, 2 of my sisters texted me, calling me disgusting, and then they blocked me. I know it sounds strange, but after that call, I took a long shower. I still don't know why I did that. Once I calmed down, I started calling and texting everyone, even No one picked up, and those who hadn't blocked me yet did so pretty quickly. The only response I got was from my dad, who texted me to stop reaching out because they needed space to heal. That was 9 years ago, and I haven't talked to anyone in my family since. Saying this messed me up would be an understatement. For weeks, I was in a fog and barely ate anything. It didn't help that this all happened right before I had to defend my bachelor's thesis, which was already stressing me out. Thankfully, my co-writer noticed something was off and took charge of the conversation, letting me handle the easier parts. Without him, I probably would have bombed it. And, of course, no one showed up for my graduation. That kicked off the worst time of my life. The first year was spent waiting for the police to show up at my door and arrest me for sexual abuse. I couldn't find a job and was just living off my savings. I drank a lot and used Oxy. I also became really bitter and angry. The only reason I didn't lash out at anyone was that there was no one around. My neighbors called the cops on me once after I broke a glass, but I managed to convince them I just dropped it, so they left since no one else was in my place. Instead of sleeping, I spent my nights plotting how to hurt and make sure no one would ever know. I even thought about doing the things she accused me of, but worse. I'm not proud of that at all. I finally got my first real job in my field in late 2015, and that's when things started to turn around. I threw myself into work because it gave me a sense of normalcy. Recovery took its sweet time, but I've cut back on drinking and have been sober for over 4 years now. I find myself smiling more often. I kept my expenses low while making decent money, so I treated myself to some cool birthday gifts like a VR headset, a motorcycle, and Legos. Last year, I finally moved out of my rundown apartment and bought a little house. Having my own garage and a garden to tend to was a dream I always had, and achieving that has really lifted my spirits. Life is pretty good now. Of course, I still have my struggles. I've been on antidepressants for a few years, and while they help, it's not exactly a joyful experience. They just dull the dark thoughts, replacing them with a kind of numbness. Trusting others is tough for me. I've tried dating but only managed to go on 2 dates with different women. It's hard to connect and act normal in those situations. And if a potential partner asked about my family, well, I'd have to explain that they accused me of a serious crime and we don't talk anymore. I swear I didn't do it. My work environment is pretty male-dominated, so the only woman I really chat with is my therapist, who I genuinely like. If this all sounds a bit jumbled, I'm sorry. I'm not the best with words, and I started to ramble as memories came flooding back. Anyway, let me get to the point about what's been bothering me lately. A few days ago, I got a text from my mom. It felt surreal, and I was really anxious about opening it. I ended up just staring at the notification for hours before I finally clicked on it. So, yesterday I got another message. Basically, it says, "Hey, it's me. It's been ages since we last chatted. We really miss you and want to know how you're doing." Then she goes on about my sisters and how my nieces and nephews are growing up. I had no idea I was an uncle. They want me to know that they love me and always will. Then there's another message. "Hey, it's me. We get it if you don't want to talk to us after everything that went down, but please hear us out. Last month, your name came up at a family get-together." He was downplaying everything that happened to her, and it got so awkward that she finally said nothing really happened and she probably just imagined it. We were all shocked. When we last talked, we were trying to protect E and did what we thought was right. We know that doesn't excuse how you were treated. What E did was wrong, and we're all really upset with her. We've reached out to everyone we know to tell them the truth. We all want to talk to you, and your sisters want you to meet their families. Please write back if you can find it in your heart to forgive us. Love, Mom and Dad. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I haven't replied, but they probably know I've seen it. Honestly, I'm furious. All those awful memories are bubbling back up. I don't want to forgive them, and I wouldn't trust myself to be in the same room with them right now. Part of me just wants to call my family and let them have it, to make them feel guilty about everything I went through until they hit rock bottom, and then focus on making my cousin's life a nightmare. One side of me wants to just brush them off and keep living my life with my motorcycle and my garden as my only companions. Honestly, I don't have any friends. The only people I chat with are my co-workers, but we're not really tight. I tried reaching out to my therapist's clinic, but they said she's on vacation for weeks and I really don't want to see anyone else. So, I'm left with random folks online. So, what should I do now? Should I just ignore them and carry on, or should I respond? And if I do, what's the right move? Meeting them in person seems like a terrible idea for now, and I'm not even sure how reconnecting would help. It's kind of embarrassing, but I've imagined them apologizing dramatically, like throwing themselves at my feet. Texting just feels so underwhelming now. To sum it up, my cousin accused me of something I didn't do when we were kids, and my family cut ties with me. Now they want to make things right since it's come out that the accusation was false. I'm really unsure how to reply. By the way, I went to bed last night after responding to a few comments, feeling good about it. Then I woke up to 1,300 comments. There's no way I can reply to all of them, but I'll try to read through them when I get home from work. I also want to clarify something that a few people mentioned. My therapist wouldn't just leave without telling me. I'm not sure how it works elsewhere, but this is a state-run clinic, so there's no hourly fee. I was assigned to her, which means she'll keep seeing me for follow-ups. This isn't set in stone. If she's out on leave or feeling under the weather, I might have to find someone else later. Taking 4 to 6 weeks off is pretty standard. I'm really frustrated. Seriously, I can just read this post and move on, but this guy had to deal with it for a whole decade. That's just messed up. Good grief. Let's keep going. Update time. Hey everyone, it's been a bit since my last update, and I've lost count of how many people have asked for one, so here it is. There's not a ton to share, but I want to clear a few things up first. Big thanks to everyone who reached out with support and advice. I'm sorry I couldn't respond to everyone, but I've read all your messages. Also, shout out to those who tried to distract me with chats about my hobbies. I know I wasn't super chatty, but I appreciate the good intentions. To those who were outright hostile, telling me to ditch my antidepressants and just pray instead, no thanks. And about the legal action, lots of folks suggested that. I didn't mention it before, but I decided against pursuing that a while back for a few reasons. At best, she'd get a minor consequence, and I wouldn't gain much from it. Honestly, it just seems like a hassle. Plus, if I ended up losing, I'd have to cover her legal fees. And about those fake updates, I've seen a lot of messages about them. As I mentioned in an edit to my last post, there are indeed some fake updates floating around on TikTok and YouTube. If you came across something on other platforms that isn't mentioned in the text below or in the linked post, it wasn't from me. I'm not too bothered by fake updates, but I want everyone who read my original post to know that those videos aren't mine. Someone even claimed they had access to my original post on our relationships, which is just not true. Now that that's out of the way, let me share what's really happening in my life right now. I wrote the original post out of frustration and feeling totally lost. I needed a wake-up call, and I got it from the first few comments. That was all it took. I've met with my therapist. I was supposed to start in September, but she was able to fit me in sooner, and we've had a couple of sessions. She read my original post and a lot of your comments. Well, she would have liked me to talk to her colleagues first. She was ultimately glad you all encouraged me to take a step back and breathe. She knows how I can get when I'm angry. I won't go into all the details of our talks, but basically, I might respond to my parents eventually, but it won't be anytime soon. I've started jotting down everything I want to say to my family and my therapist, and I'll keep refining it. For those wondering, they haven't reached out to me again. I won't be updating the situation anymore, not on Reddit or through DMs, and I won't be commenting unless it's something really important. I really don't want to come off as rude, and I truly appreciate all the support, but honestly, it can be pretty exhausting at times. I was kind of relieved when the moderators decided to lock the comments on the first post. I just want to say thanks again to everyone who's been sending me good vibes and checking in on me. And for those of you reaching out to see if I'm still around, no need to worry. I'm just taking a break from work and not spending much time on the computer. Right now, I'm busy painting my garage. It's a bit of a hassle, to be honest. And don't even get me started on the people spreading fake updates. Seriously, I feel like I should address this since we're making these kinds of videos. Come on, there are so many genuine Reddit posts out there, you guys. Let's create some real content instead of this fake stuff.